Leg and
Oh wow.
Henry
yeah,
Rollins.
Subhumans. Like that's the stuff that like still like speaks to me on a level of like aggression that's just awesome. So
One of my favorite bands, and I wish they were touring in the States, the Cardigans.
oh wait, are they still together?
It shows that they're playing in Mexico City November 6th. So
You gotta get down there, man. You gotta get down there.
Like that, like the first band on the moon, that will forever be like.
But that was that Kiss Me was them, and Losing My Favorite Game, Gran Turismo was their second
Gran
album.
Turismo.
I think so.
Yep. They had like so many hit songs like Happy Meal.
Oh,
Happy Meal too.
And that's another thing that's interesting about that band is they don't really all sound the same.
Nope.
Do you know what I mean? So, like you could think, oh, okay, well that's a hit, and then you're like, oh, that's by that band. Oh crap, they've done a lot.
Yeah, they have, man.
I'm over here trying to figure out who they are.
And then when they did the song, Cardigans, yeah.
I can't think of any
I gotta
of their
be
songs
honest,
off the top of my head.
If you go through like their top 5 hits, you're gonna be like, oh, that song. Okay, yeah, they were everywhere.
They did the song "Love Me."
Yeah, I was gonna say
that was the first song that came up when I clicked it, and it's pretty loud in my headphones.
Yeah,
it's pretty loud in my head.
Yeah, it's putting to your headphones. So. Oh boy, what am I drinking? BHIS fuel. I'm drinking the bubbly. I'm drinking bubbly. It's the blackberry bubbly, which now is probably going to get this video banned on YouTube because everything's going to shit.
Trying to get sponsored by Bubbly. BHI News sponsored by Bubbly. Come on, Bubbly. We believe in you.
We really should get sponsored by an energy drink. I mean, hackers, energy drinks, like. Of course, energy drinks know they don't have to advertise to hackers. Like, no, we got that market cornered.
Come to BHIS for your sparkling dry news with Bubbly.
Bubbly.
You could
bubbly,
go VA,
bubbly.
That would be a good one.
I always think of Bublé, Michael Bublé. I'm drinking Michael Bublé. And then I got like your best friend. Yeah, it's just bad. Just music. MC was asking, nice, how was Wild West Hacking Fest? It was awesome. It was the absolute best Wild West Hacking Fest we have ever had. It was really, really solid. But I don't know what else to say. It was just good all the way around.
We'll be back next year.
We will be back next year.
Tickets are already on sale.
Just for the attendees, right?
Oh, okay. Never mind. Oh, my bad.
Spoiler. By the way, if you attended, yeah,
it felt like we were getting the band back together.
It did finally feel that way, didn't it? So, all right, are we ready to kick this thing off?
Someone's joining right now. I think
Let's
it's Ian.
do it.
I think Ian's coming on right now. All right, we're rolling
Ian
the video.
is cool.
Lies.
Roll it. Roll it. He can catch up.
Roll it. Bubbly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news, or this is the after party edition of Wild West Hacking Fest, which we'll get into in just a little bit, but it was insane. But as always, this edition of Talking About News is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. By the way, we do have a security operations center. We have open source projects. We have all kinds of crazy stuff. So check us out at Black Hills Information Security. Was also is brought to you by Antisyphon Infosec Training. If you're looking for computer security training, as most of you are, and you're looking for security training that does not require the budget of a small Middle Eastern or Mediterranean country, God, still recovering, then you need to check out Antisyphon Security Training because I don't know. I'm lost of words. We good, we cheap. How about that? We'll just throw it in. All right, so today I am joined, as always, by the illustrious cast We have Ryan showing up, making us sound and look better than we have any right to whatsoever. We have BSD Bandits joining us from an undisclosed location, but we're going to try to send BSD to Mexico City. I think we need to do that. He's got a concert he wants to see. If somebody could stand up a GoFundMe campaign for him, that would be awesome. It was sponsored by Bubbly. Sparkling water without the fun, everyone. We have Wade. Hey, you got to call it something. Wade is also with us. Wade, we missed you. We missed you so much, dude.
I stayed off social media the whole week. I was like, I'm not going to watch. I'm not going to look at it. The only thing I did was watch Corey's talk, and that was it.
Wow, I feel so honored by that.
We have Mike, who I missed as well. Mike, we're going to get you out next year, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm planning on being out there next year, especially since there won't be any conflicts in dates.
There you go. No conflicts in dates. We have 4 people. That is 4 people that I didn't miss at all because they were there. Bronwyn is with us, and she's all the way back at home, which is crazy. It's almost like there's these magical tubes that fly you through the air to get you where you need to be. Speaking of magical tubes, went mountain biking with Corey. That was great fun. It was
we didn't need any tubes, so that's good.
You're on tubes. There's tubes. The bikes, they're tubes. They're carbon fiber tubes. At least, some of the bikes are. We have Ian, who is a little bit a little bit loopy from carbon monoxide poisoning. Because
I like beans.
He sounds normal to me.
He was wearing the bear versus bear costume with no good ventilation whatsoever.
Wait, carbon monoxide though?
Oh my god!
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon monoxide would be if he's like a combustion engine,
which he is. He is a combustion engine.
I run on dead dinosaurs.
He runs on dead. Actually, it's all dead dinosaurs all the way down, and then. Noah, speaking of bears, good to see you, sir. The beard's looking fantastic. You actually did trim yours since you got back. I haven't. I have the really disgusting, creepy Van Man stuff going on with my beard right now. So
yeah, I had to trim it when I got back. A week of going without trimming it was more than enough.
By the end of the conference, we were all looking ragged.
Right.
Oh my god, it's a bunch of meth addicts with computers. What the hell? But it is
I do want to say thank you to all the people that approached me or other individuals and thanked them for being on the news. It's so weird to think that people actually watch, but I guess now I have someone to disappoint in my head that I can think back to the nice people that came up live. Yeah, I'll be like, man, that person was so nice at the con. Now I'm gonna ruin them with this horrible article, but.
They haunt you. They haunt you for the rest of your life. Trust me, they just do. All right. Speaking of haunting, The Verge pushed out an article that let us all know that it is, in fact, Cybersecurity Week. I don't know
Could they
exactly
just make this
what
up?
to make of this.
Is this real?
No, I guess it's a thing.
Isn't it Seesaw? I remember there used to be the Seesaw CTF at New York State University that was really awesome. Is this that, or is this completely different?
No, it's different. I don't know. It's kind of weird. They're like, the internet is a wild, strange place full of scams. Here's how you can protect yourself. The biggest vulnerability is always the human element. Right. I swear to God, this sounds to me like it was written by Kevin Mitnick. But they got a bunch of articles down there.
The logo is cool. Look at all the firewall in it, the Bluetooth, the key, the fingerprint. There's probably a broken finger behind it.
They hired a good graphics designer. That's what we know.
What I like the best about the graphics, the best thing about the graphics is the confusion on the people's faces by looking at it. They're InfoSec pros. Trust me. These are people that have 20, 30 years of experience. Been like, what the hell are we even doing here?
Why do the characters look like the ABC school after school special?
They do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say The Verge is the ones that have the really bad PC build guide where they do everything completely wrong. So let's hope.
First you get your socks and rub them on the carpet. Then you pick up your processor.
So are we just going to say I'm sure that everything they have here is absolutely fantastic for people that don't know anything about, computer security, but I guess that's cool. Are we becoming more are we becoming sellouts? Is this mainstream now?
I think this is mainstream. Is The Verge that mainstream? Does my grandma know about The Verge? Probably not.
I don't know. Is that your criteria? Is that your bar?
Yes, that's my bar.
Because then mainstream is nothing but Matlock and Jeopardy.
Don't forget the Wall Street Journal. She knows about that.
Wall Street Journal and Dinosaurs reruns from the early 90s. So not the mama, not the mommy.
Not the mama. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll move on from this one because there's really not a hell of a lot going on. But one of my friends that I haven't seen in a long time, Antov Chavakin, I think just came out with just a killer article on Medium where he's talking about the cybersecurity action team threat horizons report. We were talking about syllables earlier, and Google has way too many of them, but they can afford it. But it's a report that was kicked out, and it was kind of his breakdown of what the report said. So instead of just giving a link to the report and saying, here's the report, it's like the report and then hot takes, but it's Anton. So they're good. They're really good. So one of them, they were talking about how once inside, the attackers frequently engage in crypto mining, which I think is interesting because we haven't had a lot of stories lately of crypto mining running. Ransomware is very flashy, and we have a couple of ransomware stories. But did crypto mining go out of style? Even before cryptocurrency completely crapped itself, it was still a thing, right? There were still attacks. Is it just we don't see them show up in the news because it's not all that interesting?
Yeah, I think it's gotten to be old news. It's gotten to be old news. It's not as flashy. People just aren't interested. And, if it bleeds, it leads. It isn't bleeding enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as profitable anymore. As a blue teamer, I haven't heard a lot about
So is this cloud only? Is this cloud only, or is this all compromises?
I can go to the full version. I just read his blog.
Because if it's cloud only, it says cloud compromise factors. I don't know if that's just the graph I'm looking at or if the whole report is based on cloud. If it's cloud, then I can see why cryptocurrency mining is a thing, because you can spin up actually hardware that can, in the cloud, you can get some real crypto mining done.
You are correct. Cloud application security reviews and data discovery.
Yeah.
So that's on page 7.
I'm going to go with this is a thing in the cloud world, not so much a thing in the traditional enterprise world. But that's just my hot take on another.
It's not as much, but people don't like to talk about it when you get hit with crypto miners in the enterprise. It's kind of
Are you saying that crypto miners are like the STD?
Yeah, no, it's literally like the STD of malware, and we don't want to talk about it.
It's internet herpes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, at least the crypto miners you can get rid of.
Well, but I think it'll be a comeback. I think right now it's just kind of quiet because remember for the longest time mobile went quiet, right?
Yeah,
and then it had a comeback. I think it's kind of similar with crypto. Right now it's quiet. It pooped itself. It's probably cleaning itself off, and I'm gonna say I'm looking to see something happen in the crypto world shortly.
So it's looking for mouthwash, basically.
It's been here for years.
It's like it was a hell of a party. It's
I
done.
think some of it is that the other stuff, such as ransomware and your other breaches that have been going on right now, are so much more prevalent. Where you've got people losing or getting their identities stolen off of them, and crypto mining is just, they're using my machine to go ahead and do something. Okay, that's fine. They're not taking any of my information from me.
You made my computer slow. Boo-hoo.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. That can add up in the cloud. That cost can add up.
In the cloud, I could say it.
And a lot of times it's going to be forgiven, but I've heard that cloud providers are starting to push back. If you didn't exercise due diligence, they're not going to give you the money back. My hot take is I don't think it's going to really come back. I think that just the way that cryptocurrency proof of work algorithms are less and less every month. And even the ones that are still proof of work are heavily ASIC based. So, people will still do it. It's dumb, but people will still do it. Hopefully we get more creative. It's just 65% of attackers are really boring.
Yeah. Speaking of really boring, number one, and number two, you had mentioned due diligence and the practicing of due diligence. 57.4% of the attack compromise factors were weak or no credentials, which I knew it would be high. I didn't think it would be over 50%, but holy crap. So that's huge. Now, do you think they put default credentials in that, and that would that be considered weak? It would have to be, right?
Also, probably a ton of unauth, right? Like, oh, I spun up Elastic. Whoops, forgot to add authentication, and now it's open to everyone.
And the breakdown, I love the breakdown. It's like UI exposure was 3.7, remote code execution was only 1.9, but then they had misconfiguration at 13, other at 7.4, whatever that is. But then they had this other category of just like software issue, like 16.7. It's like code was involved. 16.
It's like a business
computers.
logic thing. I don't know.
Computers and electrons. Okay.
Now, how many of them had?
Right. Oh, go ahead.
Right. How many of them had CAN-based code? Like pretty much the same source code.
Yeah.
Copying and pasting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even kind of what Corey was talking about. Whenever you're actually standing up a lot of these instances, it just comes with like default credentials or default configurations, which is about the same thing, right?
Yeah, which is what they were saying in one of the Tom was saying in one of the bullet points, that it's all about SSH, a high level of SSH activity involved with it, using no credentials or defaults, and that's scary in its own right.
I love his quote. He said that it's not Q2 of 1998; it's of 2022. Which to me smells like the 80s, not even the 90s, which he was around back then. So it's just showing like, are we actually getting better in this industry? I seriously wonder sometimes.
The good news is I automated the build script. The bad news is security was not integrated in version 0.1, and we're just going to go through with that for production. Sound good? Okay, here we go.
Sounds good.
I automated the build script, but forgot the 4 other nodes in the load balancer, so it's fine.
Oopsies.
It's fine. Those other, you have to know the URL. How is someone going to guess that?
You know what? My bad.
URL complexity is security. I've heard that argument plenty of times.
Yeah. If I just base 64 encode it and I put it in the URL, we'll be safe, right?
There's no such thing as a proxy.
Nobody's going to see you.
No one.
Browser history? We don't go after that.
That's why you should always know base 64. So when you're reading URLs and you see one, and you're like, "Ooh, what is this?" And then you may just get a bug bounty real quick or something. I don't know about
That'd be fun.
But
I tried to teach my kids to read base 64, but I had Child Protective Services called on me.
That's like the internet version of prepping. Like, all right, any day the rapture is going to come. That's the internet version of that.
You've gone too damn far when the Web 3.0 people are like, "You might want to slow down there, bucko. You might want to slow down."
Was it before or after you taught them to read hex?
well after. It's twice as fast as reading binary, as Judy Novak would say. The other one that I thought was interesting, there's so much good stuff. He said the trolls fail to identify the malware asset's nefarious nature as they check the asset's context and external characteristics instead of exploiting their content in more depth. And 10% of well-known popular websites are seen to be distributing malware. Malware legitimacy is inherited from credible hosts. Now, do you honestly think that 10% of well-known popular websites are hosting malware, or do you think that it's actually being distributed through the ads that they host?
I was just going to say that the 10% number is ridiculous. It's much higher.
Way higher.
But for the reason that you said.
Yeah, I would guess this is just staging malware on sites that allow arbitrary file hosting. That would be my guess. Like, I typically stage malware on S3 personally, but yeah, you can stage it in Google Drive. You can stage it in 100 other well-known good websites.
All right. I got a conspiracy theory. Right? Google's getting rid of ad blocker. Ads. 10% of these ads have malware in them. Google just bought Mandiant.
The only thing Google's missing is
they're perpetuating
credit. It. The only thing Google's missing in your conspiracy theory is a credit monitoring service. If they had that, then they would have all the rings.
I now pretend to use the G card. Coming soon.
Yeah. Noah just put in, just block S3, then you block hackers.
Exactly why it works, because if you block S3, that's half the internet, roughly.
You're not wrong, Noah. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
My question about this report overall is this. Looking at it and looking at the report, it seems to be based on Google Cloud itself. How large of a base do they have in Google Cloud to extrapolate to Amazon and Azure, comparatively speaking?
They have, I think it's like 20 or 30% market cap. It's pretty high, but they're not. Yeah, it's very segmented. There are different.
Although if you look at like the kind of customers that use Google Cloud, like there's actually very specific types of customers. Like you see a lot of education in Google Cloud.
Yes,
Computing.
Government, education, those are the most common. We were actually talking. They were a vendor at Wild West Hacking Fest, and I talked to the. I talked to the people, and they said that they were looking for government and small business, or, I was like, really, you're Google, you're going after government? Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I'm wondering if they're getting better at compliance. Because if you're going after that market, you've got to understand at least some rudimentary compliance frameworks to be successful. So I don't know. We'll see how it works out for them.
I mean,
but one of the reasons why we got off is their compliance logging, auditing, and analysis was an absolute train wreck. So
yeah. I mean, to your point about compliance, on their table, they had a little sign about if you're in government and you take the stack of Pokemon cards, you verified that ethically you can.
Yes.
So,
no, they did. Yes, they had the export compliance thing. It was like, if you take any gifts, you agree to that this is just a gift, and it's like the total cash value of all of our merch is $8.
Oh my god!
Wow.
I'm just gonna say compliant. They're probably doing it wrong. There's probably some attorney that was like, "Honey, today you wouldn't believe what I came up with. We're making our vendors host these little stupid signs." Crazy.
Can we get something like that? Can we just randomly apply monetary values to things that have no concept? Like Pokemon
I've got a contract that CJ wants to talk to me about. It says it basically says that you explicitly accept the terms of this condition, and if you're interacting with us as a company, it proves that you implicitly agree to the terms of this contract as well. And we're like, so if we just ignore them, then technically we implicitly agree with them. It was an amazing hot take, which I would love. I would love to get sued. I would love to get sued and take that in front of a judge and just have the judge be like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
There is a precedent for this, because apparently, if you're the president, you can just think about declassifying documents.
Oh no! Here we go. We're getting into politics. Which is hilarious.
By thinking about
Johnny Cash, and now it's declassified. All right, let's keep moving on before we go too crazy. The big one that I thought was the most interesting for me out of this, and this is something that I've been harping on for a while. A nation-state threat actor, Kimsky, has been observed by researchers at Volexity accessing user Gmail account data through hidden Chrome browser extension known as SharpExt. It was able to install a malicious browser extension via phishing, leveraging pre-authenticated browser activity to read exfiltrate data from the service such as Gmail content and installation of developer mode browser extension, which through DevTools workaround has its security warnings suppressed and the target's user cloud access data access, which is just wow. That is really cool.
Yes.
And we need to be doing more research into the browser and browser extensions, and specifically malicious browser extensions.
We definitely, don't tell Joff about this, because he's going to feel like someone scooped him.
Already have. Oh, yeah. Well, Isaac was actually working on Cursed Chrome for us, which was a malicious browser extension, which you could do all kinds of crazy evil stuff too. But that's the new frontier for malware, because trying to get it executing on a workstation, it's like you go through all this trouble. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine where you do all this stuff, and then you're literally trying to access data that's accessible in a browser, where the browser is just straight mainline right into what people access every day.
Yep.
Well, and like turning on DevTools is not a simple matter. Like you have to actually like do some really strange gyrations to do that. Because there is no command line CLI turn on DevTools option. So like when we were doing that, I built like the basic loader and basically just used send keys, and built this like weird send keys script that does a bunch of like tabs and stuff. But anyhow,
not spaces.
No spaces.
Sorry. All right.
What if I told you?
Oh,
yeah. Well, no, I was just. Yeah, I think this is when we talked about doing it for like ops, we talked about like relaunching or sideloading, causing their browser to crash and relaunching it with malicious args. So I don't know how the threat actors are doing it. It's kind of scary though.
Well, everything that I just read there, especially the stuff about turning on developer tools without and then suppressing all warnings to the user, that's hot. Like if you're the threat actor that did this, props.
Kim Suki, we want a job at BHIS? Give us an email.
Yeah.
No link. No
you
link.
Don't ever want to be like, we don't ever want to be like, we're hiring. But God, I'm sorry if you weren't evil.
You have to promise. By agreeing to this email, you implicitly promise not to be evil.
All right. Yeah. Scouts honor. No more.
I never made that.
Yeah, and these reports I think are getting better and better as time goes on, and it just keeps highlighting more and more like that. The attackers are just doing basic crap. They're spear phishing for access. They're attacking credentials. There was one that they mentioned where they brute force the user ID and password, and then they the attackers enroll their own device in multi-factor as well. So yeah, right there it is. They brute force the instance password, then enrolled their own device in the NGO's multi-factor authentication process, which sounds to me like it wasn't set up correctly in the first place. But still, I mean, this is motherhood and apple pie in the cloud age, right?
Good detection opportunity right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Memorize everyone's phone numbers.
It's not that hard. I got them.
You got them? Yeah.
Apparently, Kim Suki's other malware is called Baby Shark. So I guess.
Oh no! I already like this group.
Not Baby Shark.
Everyone's got Baby Shark in their head now. Unless
my goodness.
Yeah. Here we go.
No.
Yeah, wasn't me. I was just reading indicators of compromise. Okay.
I know it's just the IOCs. So Kimsuki, once again, massive respect. You're highly memeable. We appreciate that. Speaking of drugs, so Caffeine service lets anyone launch Microsoft 365 phishing attacks. It seems I'm kind of beginning to see a cycle here with these. This is, I think, since we started doing Talk About News, this is like the third or fourth iteration of a spear phishing service that's just so easy for the attackers to launch attacks. Using that, using the attack as a platform or as a service in the cloud. I don't know. When does this not become interesting anymore? I don't know. Is this interesting or is this not? Is this something we should even talk about anymore?
I think it's expected, right? Like you said, we've seen it so many times now. I'm not really phased by it. And honestly, okay, so now they can just do it faster and more efficiently. Great. Okay, what else is new?
Well, look at the pricing there. Basics $250. Yeah, you get a PHP and a Python version.
Not to mention this website looks nicer than the actual Office 365.
It does. Well, it's probably more useful too.
Wait till you see the phishing.
Hold it right there. Go back up. Go back up. And look at stay on their pricing. It's got auto update, inbox letter for Office, unlimited support, $50 for renewal plan. Professionals 3-month. You get all of those options. Plus, you get Office email checker, which I'm assuming is going to check to make sure that it can bypass the controls. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is like so far 2 lines of code, plus the website.
Yeah. So now the enterprise version gets, I don't understand what one free SMTP with random limit means, but you get unlimited VIP support, which is like the champagne room of malware. I don't know. So
it's just bringing the entry level down of like cyber hackers.
Yeah.
Right? Like anyone can do it now. If you really read a couple.
John, I think there's some confusion there. I think what they actually mean is semantics VIP token. You want MFA on your enterprise. No.
I'm just really hung up on this random limit. Like I love this. Like I'm gonna start selling things with random limits. Like
it's like Pavlov's dog. You got to randomize the positive reinforcement. Otherwise,
pretty much.
Coming soon to the SOC, SLA is now a random SLA.
But
you know what? Our customers agree to it either explicitly or implicitly simply by interacting with us. So
the random
2
limit,
lines of code.
The limit.
Three lines of code.
Look,
so.
3 lines of code plus the website. Victims sold separately.
The big thing is they're offering support for those 3 lines of code.
Yeah, I would
you
say
don't understand them.
Just better than most commercial companies, I suppose.
Don't pay for this. First of all, it's definitely a scam. Even if you got what you wanted, it's still a scam because
no. Go back to it though, Ryan. Open it up, main screen. You talk about it being a scam. However, it says choose a plan that suits you the best. We will refund your expired time if the sender is not working or if it's sent to junk.
So it's just free. It's completely free because there's no way it's not going to be. I will say the only way this would be worth it or interesting is if like somehow they utilize like BECs to like send these. Like if it's like you're sending these emails through like another compromised entity, that would be interesting. But I feel like that'd be way more expensive.
It would be. But that would be pretty badass, actually.
It can't be that hard. Those initial access brokers, it's like $5 for an account. So how can I tie initial access brokers into that?
I wonder if we should give our SOC customers a discount if we can relay our spear phishing attacks against other customers through their networks. Is that evil?
Only if there's a random limit.
It seems
bad. Oh my god!
I just really am waiting for them to get the call from someone else. They'll be like, "Yeah, so we think that your email's been compromised. You should probably get that checked out." And they're like, "Oh no, we let a pen testing firm use our email."
It's totally like a cult. No, we're not compromised. But can we interest you in a conversation about Black Hills Information Security Services? One of us. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, so the goal all along was to build a botnet.
Yeah, all along. That was the entire goal. Because it was getting expensive using IP gateways and Lambda in Amazon. And whatever the hell it is Google has, which I don't know. So, well, the next one, we got to play with AirTags. We have some stuff that we've done as part of some physical assessments lately where you can buy a puck, and it's basically a Bluetooth multi-device, and then you can drop code on it that allows it to access and be part of the AirTag network and to do it transparently, which is really, really cool. So in some of our classes, we'll be using that. And then also in our physical security engagements, we'll be using that as well. Now, there's 2 things that are interesting about this case from Daring Fireball. The first one basically reads that Lufthansa has completely banned AirTags. And the reason why is because they're in the category of portable electronic devices and are therefore subject to the dangerous goods regulations issued by International Civil Aviation Organization for Transport and Aircraft. Accordingly, due to their transmission function, the trackers must be deactivated during flight, similar to mobile devices like laptops, phones, tablets, if they are in checked bags. So I don't know. Like
they actually walked this back. I think
they did a little bit,
yeah.
but it also had to do with the translation. Yeah. But there was also some issues with the initial translation of the website as well. The initial translation came across a lot stronger than what it actually was. But yeah, they did walk it back. I don't know. Is this so? My thing is, you get these devices and they can record all kinds of things. I remember years ago at DerbyCon. The second to last one, who was it from Inguardians? I know Larry did it, but I can't remember who else did. Larry Pesci from Inguardians or Hackster the Matrix. They basically shipped luggage through the airlines, and they went through FedEx, and they went through UPS, and they put all kinds of equipment like gauging the temperature, the barometric pressure, and then if it was actually jostled or there was a large impact on it. And that was really interesting. Basically, your luggage and packages are treated like absolute complete garbage.
Yeah, the reason this even became a thing is because so many people were using it to like be like, "Listen, Lufthansa, it's right here. This is where my luggage is." Like
that's
you
where I
can
was
claim
going.
it's lost, but I see it like 2 miles that way in the airport cargo bay. So go get it.
Yeah.
Like
there was a big Twitter feed, right, where some guy got like his package was like in another airport, and they said they lost it.
Right.
So then he tweeted at them the actual locations, like, here's where it is, pick it up, send it to me right now. As someone who's lost their luggage, I wish I could have done that.
I think it's one of those things like, how are you going to stop it? Are you gonna have like in every bag dug through and inspected? Because there's so many ways you can hide AirTags.
But I don't think they bother stopping any electronic devices being on right now, right? They're not going through. But I agree with what Wade said. This gives them an out. So if somebody's like, I can track it, it's right there. Well, you've just violated our policies, and that's going to be $1,000 fine for you to do that. That's the kind of corporate evil that I could see actually being done on this one as well. Insider Life TV says, can you guys talk about botnet? Botnet is a whole bunch of computers that have been taken over by a malicious attacker. There you go.
We talked about it. Yeah.
I was gonna say the only other thing that'd be better is if you could have a free weather service for when airplane or when flights want to cancel due to weather, and you're like, what weather?
I think
I lost.
Like as a service, have it so you could pull it up and be like, there is no weather, and then be like, oh well, you can't because if they cancel due to weather, they don't have to refund you your ticket. More airplane corporate greed. Never mind.
I'm so confused. I've never heard of any of that, but okay.
No, I'm missing it. I'm missing it, but I'm missing a lot of things. Let's move on and let's talk about the international crackdown down in Florida. This one is really interesting. It was actually a joint exercise between Interpol, local police, and I can't remember who the other group that was around it as well. I see a shirt for Hawks is there as well. What's interesting about Interpol is Interpol really can't. I mean, when you see them in the movies, Interpol's running around like Venice and they're, chasing cars and they're shooting and all that stuff. But it really depends on what the memo of understanding is with Interpol versus local law enforcement. And usually Interpol is supporting local law enforcement. It's kind of this weird quasi law enforcement entity, but they went through and they got 70 arrests, basically really kind of, I don't want to say they shut it down, but impacting Black Axes, which is a cyber crime group. This is interesting because we usually don't see law enforcement infiltrating African groups all that much, specifically in West Africa. I wish that there was more to this story, talking about what were the politics in actually making this happen. Because this is something in security we've joked about forever. A lot of times the attackers that you're worried about are in countries that don't have extradition treaties and don't have memos of understanding with other law enforcement agencies. To actually see this happen in West Africa is really, I think, a step in the right direction. I just don't know what the framework was legally for it to actually happen.
I'm going to go with it was funded by Nigerian princes who just want their emails to land in people's inboxes.
They're tired. They're tired
we're so sick. These scammers are making us look bad.
They're making us look bad.
Exactly.
So one of their princes got their money and put this money towards getting these hackers. Go get them.
So the amount of assets seized are wild. The craziest one, I mean, obviously a lot of money, a lot of bank accounts. But the crazy one that sticks out to me is 12,000 SIM cards. 12,000 SIM cards? Oh, that is a lot of phone numbers.
So it was in South Africa, but it was against, specifically, if you look at the title, West African financial crime rings.
I don't know if anyone's sent canary tokens to these guys, whenever they email.
Yes.
I always email them back with a canary token just for fun. 90%
and
of the time.
They open it almost every time.
Every time. One time they emailed me back and said they couldn't open it. And I'm like, that's weird. And so what you also do is if you password protect them, then they can't read them in the email box. They have to download them, unzip them, and the password protect. Yeah. So you're using their own tactics against them. And when the canary goes off and it's in Africa somewhere, you just get a chuckle and oh, I did it.
You send them a screenshot of their address.
Yeah. It's great. It's so much fun. And you also usually get some secondary IOCs from them. I've sent me back other stuff or more malware, which is pretty fun.
So
too.
One of my friends who will go nameless, he was looking for a bridge home. He had sold his house and needed a house for 2 months until they could move in, and put out an ad, and he got a response. And the person was like, yeah, here's a house. It's for sale. It's in your area, but it's empty. You can use it. And he almost fell for it. And literally they were just going through and finding houses that were for sale and offering people to rent them in turn, but they needed 100% of the rent up front or something like that. And he was able to figure out that it was actually an African crime ring. So what he did, instead of just doing a canary token, is he sent an entire malicious payload to them and literally took over their entire network and then wiped all of their machines. that is not something I recommend, but you got to admit it's hilarious. But don't do that. That would be bad.
That just makes me scared for those past stories we heard about with the phishing ring last time, with violence as a service being used, right? So that's why you don't do that stuff. Just maybe a canary token. Don't go too far. Let the cops handle it.
I still feel pretty safe in South Dakota. I think that a lot of these violence as a service people would just be like, "We got this gig." Oh,
if you can't get Uber, I don't think violence as a service is much of a concern.
I have to rent a car. Tying it with Uber.
It is good. I think it's a good step, especially like financial crimes are one of those things where it's like, how is this still working? How are we just like, hey, I'm Microsoft, send me like $500 in Amazon gift cards or whatever. Like, this is a good step for international crime task forces or Interpol or whatever you want to call it, to be able to nab in the course of a week, to nab people from however many countries it was, like 10. That's awesome. So they must have really good Discord channels. Or whatever they're using to share intelligence. I'm sure it's very OPSEC safe and totally not Microsoft.
So next story that I think is kind of scary, Tata Power in India was compromised. Very, very little on this story. They believe that it was APT or tag group 38. This always frightens me whenever we start seeing. Okay, so the reason why this scares me is almost always these attacks on power grid infrastructure are usually, especially in countries like India and Ukraine before the war, they're usually dry runs for something else. And anytime this happens, I'm like, and it didn't blow up. It's like, what was this a dry run for? This spooks me. And once again, I think the scariest hacks are the ones with the shortest press release. And there's really just not much on this one. Recorded Future said that they saw some of the data associated with the attack. But as far as the official filing from the organization itself, even if you try to go to it now, it's actually in the filing. It's actually access denied. You can't download the PDF right now, which I thought was weird. Might just be a web kerfluffle on that.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely right that it's pre-flight checks, because that's even what the company themselves said, is like they were just trying to gather information targeting these actual substations where power is controlled. So I would agree with the spook factor on this one. This is like a little bit, I guess it's almost Halloween, so this is a little bit spooky. But
has anyone read Nicole Perlos? This is how they tell me the world ends. The Cyberweapons.
No.
Give us the rundown.
Highly recommend it. So Nicole's like, I believe she was a Times writer for the cyber, and she also interviewed Jake. So he has like mentions in there, and she goes through all the big cybercrime the past 20 odd years. And she talks about the U.S. power grid and how I forget which nuclear power plant got hacked, but goes into explaining how Ukraine was just a test ground for us, that Russia uses them and then comes after us and embeds themselves for long-term infection to one day maybe flip the switch on the U.S. She doesn't put it in so dark of terms. And it's definitely a very good book for anyone to read, either if you're very experienced in cyber, and especially if you're not. It's written for no experience, but highly suggested.
Yeah, they talked about the very similar stuff in the.
Is that the right link, Wade?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, in Ukraine, or they targeted them, like they already were used to the power just going out all the time, so they had like 1 million trucks to go manually override everything, just like ready. Whereas here, we're not used to that, so we don't have that kind of like manual override baked into our like, operational standards or whatever.
So, but I wonder, like with the Ukrainian war, how much? So, everything that's been going on. I remember whenever this first happened, we were talking about on the news. We were like, "Holy crap! Cyber attacks are coming against the U.S." Do we think that Russia is holding? But like, are they holding back right now? Are they still so focused on the objectives at hand, like trying to like limit and censor speech inside of Russia, that they don't have time to deal with us? Or do they look at that as an escalation that a line that they don't want to cross? kind of like the same thing as like the nuclear type line. They don't want to cross those lines. Like, what is it?
Definitely escalation,
it is
right?
Dead quiet right now whenever we're looking at it. So go ahead, Wade.
I think it's definitely escalation. So this is geopolitics 101, right? And I know you have a political background, as do I. And you have to just think every country is in this environment where they have to defend for themselves, right? And if you make one small move, it may be the end of you, right? If Russia makes that move against us, it's going to be game over for someone or somehow. It's not, and also it's going to throw the world into complete chaos, not just them. If you got to think about the whole escalating factor.
So what you're saying, let's be honest, their game is chaos, right? That's what they are doing. Mm-hmm. So do you think it's an issue of just like, poli-sci majors rise up? Do you think it's an issue of they want to have just the right amount of chaos? And they don't want to escalate beyond because it actually blows back against them. Because once again, I'm looking at Ukraine, and that seems like that's pretty damn chaotic. And they don't have a lot of options. And it seems to me like if I was a crazy Russian dictator, cyber would be a really great option at this point.
Yeah,
but
I would.
If they were to perform that, though, then all of their allies are also some they have, like China, right? China doesn't want that. China, be an enemy or not, is tied to us economically. If we go down, China goes down.
China wants those networks up and running because they're siphoning all the data.
I think my take on this is
like a vacuum.
Yeah, my take on this is, first of all, I think cyber is basically free reign. I don't think anyone's going to respond. Like, the U.S. is not going to nuke Russia because they took down our power grid. It's just not going to happen. It didn't happen in Ukraine. It took them actually sending tanks in to cause kinetic situation. But
I agree with you, but do you think they wouldn't have done that if the Ukraine still had nukes?
I think they would have done it regardless.
The Ukraine used to be the third largest nuclear weapons holder in the world, and then they gave them up to Russia and the U.S. under the condition Russia would never invade them.
And so, I mean, Russia has nukes and we're hacking them constantly. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. But
there's a line.
I hope to God right now the NSA is completely up in there.
I'm sure they are. So my theory is that Putin or whatever command is just like, give me something. We can't drive tanks. We can't keep the internet on. Like, give us something. And this is the hackers in Russia being like, we got something. We can do that. We can do something useful. Also, they're hackers. They just ignore whatever's happening and hack. They're not like, no, you know what I mean? They're just like living in their own little world. Like, oh, I can compromise the power grid.
The one thing that oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the other aspect of this is that if you look at how we do politics sometimes, especially when it comes to cyber type stuff, we often, like, large moves in cyber are usually associated with like direct impacts to certain sentinels. Yeah, you know what I mean. Congressmen, stuff like that. So if a congressman loses power, that's drastically different than something else. Like that's going to start pushing, like, oh, well, we need to start doing things about this. We should be like enforcing cyber policy, and I think they know that as well.
And I think the one thing that would lead me to agree with Wade is once you have done that thing, it's used. Like, that is not, once you start shutting down power grid, once you start shutting down pipelines, once you start doing that, it's not something you do unless you're making a big move, right?
It's a shock and awe type move.
Yeah, it's Stuxnet all over again, right? Stuxnet opened the box at the very beginning and actually caused physical harm not physical harm to people, but actually mechanical harm, right? I'm sure maybe someone
and Zance and Bashir,
right?
Absolutely.
And I think that was the thing that opened the world's eyes. Like, oh, all right, stuff's about to go crazy. So we haven't had anything at that level yet.
See, but I disagree. I disagree because 03026, which is RPC DCOM, that one actually brought down the Eastern Seaboard. Brought down the entire Eastern Seaboard. And I like to bring that up because people are like, Stuxnet, this let us know. No. We had warnings. We had warnings a long damn time ago. And one of my favorite quotes from Ed Scotus was like, and after 2003, the United States got everything together and solved the power grid security issues. Totally didn't happen, right? It's absolutely terrifying. And kind of bringing in Rob M. Lee on this and Dragos, his take on it, and I agree with him because he's everywhere, right? his belief is the United States power grid is in a much better place than it was 5 years ago. He might even say that it's in a good place right now. Not completely across the entire power grid, but most of it is pretty solid. He said that anytime you go overseas, it's an absolute train wreck. So I don't know. I don't like the idea to think that the Russians are running around inside of our power grid. And I know that they have been in the past because I've worked on gigs like that. But God, there's got to be some progress that's been made over the past 5 years, right?
I think about it as another political outlet, right? So one of the things with Stuxnet, right, is Israel was rumored to go. Well, they were going to go bomb.
Just say they were. Because we all know they were. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not do rumored anymore. It was the NSA. It was Israel.
Israel was going to. So the U.S. and Bush had to figure something out. How do we stop World War III? And how do we stop any of this happening? What do? We just hack them and slow them down for a little bit.
And it worked.
So then, and it worked. It worked. And the Israelis were satisfied, right? The U.S. was satisfied. Iran didn't get bombed, at least, and start war. I think the same thing is with these power grids. It's going to become just kind of a political card that you can play, and it's not the end of the world, but it's definitely going to be like, oh, look what we can do, and then it's going to turn something off, if that makes sense. It's like, if we can't nuke them, we can turn off their power.
I'd much rather have
right
I would so much rather have, and I know people will be like, well, cyber attacks shutting down people, so much better than nukes.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. My nightmare, my personal nightmare, is that somebody gets the idea that you start off with a cyber attack, you go after infrastructure, you go after communications, and then you land with conventional troops and other conventional warfares, or you drop very specific nuclear devices that have a limited destructive capability in order to take a very specific. Thank you. Tactical. That's the word I was looking for. So the thing that we haven't seen yet, and that frightens me. And when I first got into cybersecurity, this was one of the nightmares, was that, okay, great. Now I know about this additional threat in addition to the other threats that are existing out there. How long is it going to take before precedent is established where these multi-layered attacks?
It's already happened, right? Like,
well,
Israel did that. Well, no, even before that, Israel did that. Israel hacked Iranian radar and then came in with some bombers and bombed them without.
But I think, but let's separate some things out, right?
Okay.
If you go back to like the Gulf War, 1 and 2, and I've mentioned it on this show, and I'm old. The communications infrastructure in Iraq stayed up because we were in there. It was an intelligence source, so we didn't want to bring that down. Right? We could, we didn't. We want to keep it going because we're inside the network and we can actually track where people are. And cyber being used as part of the kinetic like options that are available for like actual hot wars has been around for a long time, right? Like you said, Israel did it. We've done it multiple times. Russia actually did it in Ukraine as well, more psyops perspective. But I think that that's fundamentally different than kind of what Bronwyn's talking about. Bronwyn's talking about a more large-scale implementation, not necessarily just tactical, but it being part of a much larger scale attack. And Bronwyn, putting words in your mouth, I want to make sure I'm not, but an example of that would be shutting down the power grid, not in June and July, but shutting down the U.S. power grid in such a way that it's not recoverable, a Stuxnet-style attack, where really expensive machinery is wiped out, and you bring down the eastern seaboard for a week. That's going to be something that's going to cause people to die. So it's not like it's being used in a little ways. It's like, how come we haven't seen being used in a much higher scale? Is that right, Bronwyn? I want to make sure I paraphrase that correctly.
Yeah, you're definitely on. There's, you did a little bit of a segue, but your points are good too. I'm thinking in terms of using it as conditioning, like it has been done before, but again at scale. And if some dictator somewhere decided that okay, it's time to really kill the U.S., we're not just going to talk about it, we're actually going to pull that trigger, then come in with this multi-layered approach. And especially if they hit power, if they hit water, if they hit basic infrastructure, and if they take down communications,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and the shoot
I
asked the question. Like I said, this would be used in conjunction with something else, right? This would be used in conjunction, and I think, Wade, I think that you hit it right on the head when you were basically saying they're not going to pull that string because China doesn't want them to pull that string, because China wants to have that string too. Because once that genie's out of the bottle, we will change our security behaviors.
It's like MAD, but inside out.
Yes, mutually assured. Absolutely, I think that's a good point. So maybe that's why we're not seeing it.
I think it would be the potentially worst mistake you could make to combine cyber attack with kinetic, because then the attribution is there and you could actually respond accordingly, and the US will respond quite accordingly. Like if you're the nuclear button presser guy, they're like, we're like 90% sure this is Russia. You're like, 90%? Okay. Can we do any better than that? Because that's why it doesn't provoke a response, because there is no real attribution. Like, yes, in various rare cases there can be, but if they cover their tracks well enough, or false flag, it could just be like, oh yeah, now we're just bombing someone that we didn't, had no.
Well, and Adam brought up a good point. Just to be clear. Adam said, do we think that the NSA isn't in the power grid also? No. No one said that. And to be honest, if the NSA is doing their damn job, they are in the power grids of multiple different countries. I expect them to be there, right?
That's pretending to be someone else.
And pretending very much to be someone
They're like,
else.
We're North Korea, for sure.
I always think the CIA and the NSA would be on the same network, and they're like, oh, the Chinese, it's the Russians. They're actually going against each other.
Well,
and then they get together afterwards. They're like, that was funny.
All of those agencies may be in there digitally, but they're also in there physically to an extent, as well. I mean, cyber is being used closely with espionage, around the world. So there would be actual physical agents as possible options as well.
I think all of this. I think all of this comes down to this really, really scary thing that we're talking about, all the way from the book to what we're talking about here. Is we're definitely in uncharted waters, right? We used to talk about this stuff as hypothetical. Now it's actually being used. And I think that that's the scariest thing. And I think that anybody that can sit around and say, this is exactly what's happening, is full of crap, because the parties that have the capabilities and have their fingers on the proverbial buttons, they don't even know what the hell they're going to do coming forward. We're talking about plans. The military in the past has said that all options are on the table, including nuclear. And they have to say that because they don't want to constrain themselves. So all those options exist. I think the thing that's scary is trying to identify and try to predict what the people that make those decisions would actually do.
Yeah,
I am less scared of a nation state being capable of that, and more because
they have some level of control.
They have some level of control. I want to know, why haven't we seen high scale cyber terrorism in that?
See, and every time I go on Shodan and I demonstrate VNC being open on thousands of computer systems, it's just I think in a lot of ways, once again, it goes back to first world, second world, and third world countries on the internet, right? It's no longer this is a country that, or we're all moving in security and getting better. It's not. It's just getting more and more spread out.
Have you ever, I'm sure you have, read about how the different forms of terrorism, the generational terrorism, how there was anarchy, Islam, religious-based terrorism, and now they believe we're moving into a right-wing terrorism right now, right? Where
yes, I have read that, that's not controversial at all. No. But I think as a poli-sci, we're talking about political scientists. Whenever you look at that type of violence, right? Whenever you start moving down those things, there's a lot of very, very interesting case studies. Whenever you're looking at Northern Ireland, or you're looking at some of the the Basque region in Spain, or even the Oklahoma City bombing and things like that. There's a lot of parallels that exist and whenever you're looking at it from the perspective of what is the tool that actually weaponizes people to do those things, it's incredibly varied, right? And religion is one of those very, very powerful things that can be used to actually do that. And nationalism, of course, is one of those things as well. Nationalism is very often.
If the Green Bay Packers tell you to blow something up, you're going to do it. That's how America.
Yeah, that's just how it goes.
If you want season tickets, blow up your whatever.
But I would encourage people to research that. And this is way outside of the scope of this. But what's most interesting to me, Wade, whenever you're actually researching those, is how did those things terminate? How did they end? Mm-hmm. So if you look at political violence that was actually tied with religious violence, I think it was in Spain or Italy, I can't remember which, what actually got it to the point where people got better is it actually came to a small level of very violent takeover. I think there was a town where they went in and they killed some people, and it caused the entire country to take a couple steps back. If you look at Northern Ireland, it actually got to the point where it was actually hurting the people in that area, and it caused them in Northern Ireland to take a step back. And I think that kind of feeds into what you're talking about is, now whenever you're looking at what the capabilities are for these different violent organizations, the violence is so much greater than just a suicide bomber. The violence is so much greater than, just, going and shooting up a public square as it was for years. Now any cyber terrorist type organization has more tools. We're getting really, really, really into some weird space.
Some hot nation
one last. No, I can tie it back. A really good threat intel book that I got told to read is called A Brave New World, and it talked about
Aldous
this.
Huxley.
Wait, Huxley's?
No, is it? Let me go look.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that.
I was about to say.
I think you got the title of that book wrong.
Wow, he has like a bookshelf.
No, I lied. Brave New War.
Okay. So it's a play on Brave New World.
Yeah. It's John Robb. But I never thought about threat intelligence in the way beforehand before I read this book at cost, right? Like how much does it cost to perform a terrorist attack or any type of this? And then that got me thinking, how much does it cost to perform a cyber attack? And it's much cheaper and a lot easier. And there's a lot of scripts and tutorials. But anyways, we can start talking about it.
Before we close out, does anybody want to talk about the fact that now Amazon, when you're shopping for books, is throwing a timer to the next football game on Thursday?
Talk about religion.
I keep seeing that. I'm like, what is happening here?
They're doing that in front of shows on Prime also. You go to watch the latest Rings of Power, the first thing is a football ad.
They're
every time. It's like, and I think it's very interesting that, Wade had a slip and he called it the Brave New World. And then the name of the book is Brave New War. And then it shows Amazon, which is like literally Soma for everybody, like getting hooked in Rings of Power football. Yes, here's your new opiate for the masses, everyone.
Yep.
What are we?
So this book is from 2008, but the book is old. But the crazy thing is, it predicts a couple things that have recently happened and goes through it. And I would highly suggest reading it if you're into this type of stuff. I'm philosophy. We'll have a talk just on that. Let's do a podcast.
All right, everybody. That long ago.
All right. I know, Bronwyn. I know. All right, everybody. We need to wrap it up.
John, I think there's some breaking news, though.
Oh, God. No more breaking news. Okay, Ian, what's the breaking news?
Ryan?
Breaking news out of Deadwood, South Dakota today. Bear fights on the rise at information security conferences. Footage seen here from Wild West Hackin' Fest last week as a new APT group, Ransom Bear, attacks Blue Bear in a defensive posture trying to take care of cybersecurity incidents. We're not sure what's going on, but more details are coming soon. You can find out more about these two bears by going to blackhillsinfosec.com, Recca Bear vs. Bear, to get the latest issues of Bear vs. Bear delivered directly to you and learn more about what's going on between these two arch rivals and how to better secure your environment. Back to you in studio.
That just proves it, folks. That just proves it. To sum up everything, we're seeing cybersecurity go kinetic right there while we're and it might actually go kinetic at a conference near you.
Noah witnessed it. Noah's a firsthand.
Yeah, I heard the bears are going to get T-shirt weapons.
Yeah, T-shirt weapons.
Who wants a
All
t-shirt?
right, everybody. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. I'm absolutely fried. Looking forward to it. I think tomorrow, what do you guys think? Should I do something on SQL map? Does that sound like fun? I'll do a SQL map section. All right. So tomorrow in address-based layout randomization, we're going to play with SQL map and SQL injections and what you can do to defend against it. Till then, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.